class on how to understand the mind of your students and developing a teaching approach for them. I put in parentheses fencer, just because that's what I do. I have a feeling a lot of this will cross over to heavies, but just given that I've never done heavy, I don't want to speak to something I don't know about. Little intro. This came from research I've been doing into how to better train and retain lady fencers. I do think a lot of this is going to be applicable to really all students, but just given that that has been the focus of my research, I can't always say, oh yes, male fencers, do this or have this answer, just because that hasn't been the focus.
Do you want to give something about your background?
Yes, we'll get there. Thank you for the reminder. And then a brief disclaimer, there's just not a lot, or there's not really any research on sports psychology for people who are outside of that cisgender male-female binary. So for anybody who does not identify as strictly female or male, I do apologize. I can't speak directly to you because there hasn't been research out there. But again, I really think a lot of this is applicable to any student, but just wanting to clarify there. So my background, as Kai had mentioned, is that I am a licensed clinical professional counselor. That is the highest level of licensure for a therapist in my state. There's only 2 levels, so don't get too excited. But I am a professional licensed practicing therapist. So that's kind of where I come from in how I know this stuff. I know how to find the research literature. I know how to read it, interpret it, and all that stuff. But what we have here, now getting into things, is that the research I've been finding is that, oh, and I forgot, Kai's going to jump in with his point of view as the teacher. Kai has been my teacher for
a while.
A while.
I'm going to go with a while.
We're going to go with a while. It's been over a decade, I think. So he's going to throw in his point of view as a teacher, because he also happens to be a phenomenal teacher. And
well, I've learned a lot of stuff by trial and error. I taught Taekwondo for a number of years, and tried to apply what I learned there, again mostly the hard way, to our fencing students within the SCA and in other environments as well. And one of the things that I think many combat sport teachers are trying to figure out is how to create an environment that is conducive to the long-term development and retention of students, of students who, women, non-binary, non-binary, part of the pride community, anyone who doesn't sort of the traditional, like, I'm going to go learn to hit someone kind of what we think of as a stereotype. Mm-hmm. So, to provide some context, when the SCA created the Order of Defense, one of the first things that the members of the order did is went and did some research in terms of what are the gender demographics in the fencing community within the SCA as we sort of go up the level of sort of achievement. And what we found is that my black cat likes to play fetch, and so he'll come and demand that, and that's what he's doing. But one of the things that they found is that at the novice level, sort of we are almost dead even in terms of demographics, men and women. But as we sort of go up and up the ladder of achievement from AOA level awards to grant level awards to the Master of Defense, the split becomes more and more and more weighted towards men, which suggests that we are as a community failing our female students, both in terms of retention, they're dropping out, and in terms of development, we are failing to get them to the levels of achievement that we should be as teachers. And so that's kind of where this project came from, because I am not a sports psychologist and do understand, only understand these things sort of at a very basic layperson's level. So, so Gwen and I, this is a project Gwen has been working on for a number of years to bring some scientific rigor to this.
So to what Kai said, the research has shown that poor coaching is the leading reason why women and girls will leave a sport. I haven't researched the top reason for men and boys, but I'd really be surprised if that wasn't a factor. I've heard plenty of stories of somebody who had a terrible coach and it just took out all the joy in that sport. Or you have one terrible teacher and you're like, I am never touching this subject again. Like, somebody goes to college, like, I'm going to be an engineer. And then they have one really shitty professor and they're like, I'm never going to be an engineer. So I do think that's probably a universal factor. So as Kai said, our theory is we need to change that in order to retain new students. So then the question is how?
Yep.
And I think we need to look at our modes of teaching and really come to know the mind of the student to really know what works best for them. A lot of teachers in at least the fencing community, kind of more or less wing it. Unless you're Master Chrétien, we're not actually taught pedagogy. He's an actual teacher.
He's actually a teacher, yeah, like an actual professional teacher.
Yeah, so he knows that stuff.
I did find an anecdotal. So in terms of, if you want a good anecdote that kind of tracks what we're going to talk about, there's a TED Talk by a lady named Valerie Condos Field. She was formerly the women's gymnastics coach for UCLA, and is widely recognized as one of the most accomplished gymnastics coaches in the history of the sport. And one of the things that she talks about in her TED Talk is that when she first got the job, she was terrible. And her students sat her down and said, look, we don't trust you, we don't like you because of the things that you're doing, and caused her to re-examine her entire method of teaching. And as a result of doing that, she's taught some of the greatest competitors in that sport. So that's what we're going to, try to reproduce in some small way here in the SEA.
And Kai, you have a request to either spell that individual's name or provide the link to the TED Talk if you could.
I will do that. I'll put that in the chat.
Right. And one thing we're going to talk about later on is the trust that the student has in the teacher and really the benefits of that trust and what all can fall out from that. So the benefit that the individual that Kai told us about is, one, student sat her down and said, okay, look, also has some pedagogical training in how to teach gymnastics, which most of us don't for fencing. We wing it. We explain it the way it was explained to us. We show what worked for us. Said, oh, well, this worked for me. Now, if you don't know Kai and you don't know me or you've never seen us, I'm 5'5" and Kai is over 6 foot. You're what, 6'2"?
Yes.
He told me about you.
Yay! So what works for Kai because of his height is not gonna work for me because I'm a lot smaller. And so that was something that, for example, he would have to adjust for my height. So other than physical difficulties, there's also just natural proclivities that can influence how we learn. Whether it's, a specific skill or a trick or a maneuver or whatever that is useful for that specific fencer. For example, Kai and I tried this and I found that I can't go up into first or preem and duck down because with my spine, which is scoliosis, I can't get down far enough, fast enough. So I just don't do it. Very simple. But that's something that Kai has to be flexible about instead of saying, I insist you do this because this is the way I do it. Well, I just can't. So we don't. And I see we have, I'm going to check out the chat here.
Apparently I'm 7 feet tall with a 20-foot reach.
Well, he's not wrong. And thank you for the link, Kai. So we're going to start off here first with a way of learning. We call it observational learning. It's you learn by seeing. Within a sport, there's 3 functions to observational learning. You observe to learn a skill, you observe to learn a strategy, or you observe to improve performance. In the research literature, both recreational athletes like us and professional athletes use that observe to learn a skill function the most, particularly in one-on-one sports like fencing. Then after that, we tend to observe to learn strategy, and then observe to improve performance. So this observe to learn a skill is frequently called watch and learn, and that comes in two parts: learning the skill and performing the skill. And then that is further broken down into 4 stages. By the way, if anybody wants my notes after this, I can send them to you. So you have learning the
Yes,
skill.
please.
Yes, we will do that. Somebody remind me at the end to get email addresses.
I'll create a sharing link and I'll just drop it in here.
That'll work. So these 4 parts of this watch and learn. You're watching the skill, so you're watching somebody do it. Then you're encoding that. You're remembering what you saw. Then when you try to perform what you just saw, you try to replicate what you saw. You see somebody do a lunge and then you try to do what they did. And then the last bit is motivation to do the thing. That motivation can be external, like, you do it and your teacher goes, yeah, that was right, do it again. Or you're so close, do this. It can also be internal, where you're like, yeah, I did the thing, woo. But that motivation, whether it's from yourself internally or your teacher or a friend, whoever, has to be strong enough to drive the student to reproduce that action over and over and over again. When we do those drills, even though they're boring, because we know if I drill this, when I'm in a fight, I'll be able to do it. And I don't know about everybody else's practices, but my practice, we're not so great on that drilling part, but we try. We try to make active drills, so we kind of having some more fun. So the motivation, even though it seems like the least factor in terms of learning a skill by watching, and actually can be killed fairly easily, either through failing to improve or consistently reproduce that action. So maybe you learn a new fencing maneuver, a new trick. If you don't execute it successfully often enough, you're just gonna stop doing it. You just go, well, this isn't working for me. Or every time I do this, I eat it in the face. Why would I keep doing that? Or the other one is a poor learning environment, which is, getting that positive feedback, having somebody help you. If your teacher just says, well, do this, and you do it wrong every time, and they go, well, I don't know, it works for me, that doesn't get you anything. It's going to get you discouraged. You're going to be frustrated. You're not going to want to do that thing, because if the answer is, well, it worked for me, logical answer for you is, well, it doesn't for me.
Mm-hmm. And as teachers, if we don't understand, if we can't figure out how to bridge the gap between our own personal experience and the journey that brought us to where, for whatever reason, people look at us as an authority figure, to meeting our students where they are, we're already operating at a disadvantage, because we've sort of failed to do, I think, the one most important thing in any kind of modern combat sport, which is make it enjoyable. The SCA especially, I mean, our practices, we generally don't charge for our practices. It's very inexpensive to go to an event and fence. And so if the club isn't fun, people won't stay. And everyone's got their own sort of view of what they, what brings them to a combat sport, which is fundamentally what we're talking about. But as a teacher, if you want to succeed, and if you want your club or your practice to grow, and to grow in a way that's representative of the community that you live in, you need to find a way to make your students enjoy it. This is not, and in the SCA especially, because our barrier to entry is so low, anyone can just kind of walk in and start practicing, because we have a lot of loaner gear. We've got, the club is not expensive. they don't have the same level of investment they have if as you have with like a personal trainer, where you're actually paying them to be kind of mean to you.
So Kai, over the past, maybe 3 to 5 years, you've had students who have been brand new.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a student who's been in this a while, but was kind of stymied in what they were doing. And then you have a student that was, kind of reaching those upper echelons of achievement. What's your observation for those three people, those three stages of development, new, in the middle, and getting up to the higher level? What do you do for each of those to keep this fun for them?
I think the most important thing that I have learned from working with students, and from from sort of observing you as you have done your research that you're presenting here, is understanding what a particular student wants to get out of this. Like, some people are in it because they want to really pursue a particular type system of fencing, right? He's not here, but Phil, really wanted to learn Spanish rapier combat, and that's what I study, and we made that work for us. With Colleen, it was a little different. My other student, it was a little different because she just enjoys fencing, but she has physical limitations that really make it hard for her to do things that a lot of us consider to be sort of standard fencing activities, like lunging. She's got some chronic injuries, and so part of with her, it was trying to figure out, well, what can we do that suits your particular needs as an athlete. With Phoebe, PJ here, it was the same thing, right? PJ had been learning a type of fencing that's mostly kind of Italian derived, and when we talked, we just weren't having as much fun because it wasn't really well suited to the way that the way that you move as move around the floor. And so we decided to try something different. A lot of it is working with the students to find out for them what is working within the context of the rules of the combat sport that we are operating under. So in the SCA we have our rules that they define, what is a good hit, what are valid techniques. Within that sort of safety framework, we have a lot of different options, right? And we've become fortunate as more and more historical sources have been discovered and translated, that we can now find more of these. And a lot of what I do is try to figure out what is something I can teach any particular student that they will enjoy, and that they will be able to really, that will just get them out there fighting soon, safely, and in a way that doesn't hurt them.
So now, how do you recognize both when a certain method or mode or technique just isn't working for the student, and how have you learned to recognize when your students are getting frustrated?
See, I learned this from you.
Well, let's hear it.
You get this look when you're just like, you have a look that just says, my brain is full, I am done, I am, like, stop, just stop, turn off the fire hose, I need to break. And everyone hits.
The thing that's incredible to me is that you can tell that through a fencing mask.
It's not just your face. It's body language. It's a lot of things. I mean, we all exhibit certain body language when we're frustrated or when we're unhappy, and I think it's important to just, even if you're not going to become some kind of cold reading expert, to be able to just look at someone and learn when they're not having fun. And if that's not a skill that comes easy to you, check in every so often, like, hey, how is this working for you? Or we've been struggling with this one particular thing for a while. What's working, what's not working? And so a lot of it is simply asking, right? Like when we do a drill, or when we go through a lesson, What's one of the questions I always ask you?
Oh gosh, you asked me lots of questions.
What did we learn today?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you remember from last week? What did we learn today?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, is this making sense? How are you doing?
Yeah, and so honestly, the way to develop that sort of understanding of your student is to just talk to them.
One thing I really enjoy about Kai, in that he does talk, is that as he was learning my body language, he would say, "How are you doing? Are you getting frustrated?" And as the student, that created a space for me to say, "You know what? Yeah. Yes,
Mhm.
I am frustrated." Because sometimes when there's that power differential between student and teacher, and there's lots of factors that can go into that, the student doesn't feel like they can say that. They don't feel like they can say, "Yes, I'm frustrated," or "My brain is full," or "I'm so frustrated, I'm about to cry," whatever. But by being the teacher saying, "How are you doing? Are you frustrated? Is this making sense?" That creates the space for the student to walk into that and say it, as opposed to, "Well, just tell me." Because I don't know if you've noticed, anytime you say to somebody, "Just tell me," or "If you need help, let me know," people
Mhm.
rarely do. You
In
need to
the
create the, go ahead.
in the SCA, one of the questions that everyone asks at the end of every bout is, "Are you both satisfied with the outcome of the match?" And what does everyone say? Everyone says, "Yep, I'm fine," and then they walk off. Culturally, for whatever reason, I call them nerd sports. It's like fencing and like sports that nerds tend to gravitate towards. We that is a I think that is I think that's something that exists across multiple different kinds of sports, because I was a nerd. And Carrie, you're a nerd. I mean, lots of
Are a
us are
nerd.
nerds. We're going to play Dungeons and Dragons over the internet tomorrow. Yeah, we're all nerds.
Yes, you're a nerd.
But the we've been socialized for a long time to kind of keep your head down, just do the thing and don't rock the boat. And if that's the case for me, who is like, I'm 6'2" and 215 pounds, I can present, I present a different physical presence in a room than you do. I
Mhm.
can only imagine, if that's difficult for me, what it must feel like for someone who is smaller than me, who has maybe been socialized to be less expressive about what their personal needs are.
Mhm.
And so, as a teacher, if you want to keep these people, keep a broad spectrum of students around, we need to understand what makes them comfortable and what makes them uncomfortable, and try to run our classes in a way that makes people want to stay. And I don't know, maybe you can go into that part a little more,
About creating that space.
or like why it is that I think women in particular are not as good at sort of asserting themselves, saying like, "Hold on, I don't like this. This isn't working," or this isn't, I don't get it."
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. In our culture, women are socialized to just kind of accept whatever the man's going to do and let him talk, whether or not we actually give a shit.
Or
I'm
whether
so,
or not I am right at all.
yeah. Um, any of the women here, I can't see all your faces, but I'm sure you're going to start nodding. You can put a bunch of men and women in a room, and some guy is going to start talking, and he clearly thinks very highly of himself. All of the women in the room are going to give each other a look. And it's a look we all know. And that look says, "Oh, this guy's talking out of his ass." And every woman's going to go, "Uh-huh." And he has no idea that every woman in the room has just all agreed he's talking out of his ass. But
And
we are, go ahead.
it doesn't even mean that I'm necessarily saying something that is wrong, like, or factually incorrect. I may be imparting information that is, in this context, it is historically true. It comes from, like it is correct in some way. I just am presenting it in a way. I just don't know how to actually communicate with my students.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know what? She's just not in the mood to hear that right now. I'm sure we've all been there. It's like, you did something, you're trying your hardest, you still died, and your opponent's like, oh, well, I got you because you did this and this. And in your brain, you're like, look, I'm just frustrated, okay? I don't want to hear your lecture. And it's really hard for women to say, you know what, I don't want to hear it right now. Because we are socialized not to.
And so as instructors, if we want our students to stick around and not give us that look like, oh God, what is he doing this time? We need to create that environment, and we need to set an expectation of frank and open communication.
Mm-hmm. There's 2 instances that I remember. One was maybe 10 years ago, a long time ago. I was at practice. I probably had 4 or 5 of the guys at practice all standing around me talking to me. I was full. I could not take in any more information. I didn't want to hear this, but I just stood and listened. And one of our other males, this was Will Navarre Kai, he sees this. He walks over, stands next to me. And I remember he looked at me, looked at everybody else, looked at me and said, you can just tell them to fuck off. Every one of them stopped, looked at him, looked at me, and just waited. And I went, fuck off. They all went, okay. And then they walked away, and I'm looking at Will like, what is this magic? And it was again, Kai says that, what do we tell our children? Use your words. And so then many years since, this was probably, I think it was this winter, I can't remember why, I was very frustrated. I don't know what was in my head. I was so frustrated. I'm just not fencing well. I was about to cry with frustration, which that's a thing. And and I was able to say to Kai, I just went, Kai, I need to stop. I need to go frustration cry. And he just went, okay. And I love that I have that trust in Kai, that I can say that outright. I know he's not going to judge. He's not going to go, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? Are you okay? Okay. Because he knows, he's learned, she just needs to go cry it out. She'll come back when she feels better. And that's what I did. I was gone maybe 5-10 minutes, had my cry, got it out of my system, came back, and he goes, okay, so let's talk. What's going on? And we did. And I can tell you, for me, that trust was many years in the development, in the making, and that Kai has created that for me.
But that's something that we can all do as teachers. And the sooner you set that expectation, the more effective. I personally believe the more effective we will be as instructors, because when someone walks on you, when you create that environment from the first instant people step out on the floor, then they will know that they can, that we tell people and we show people that they can be, that we want them to talk to us. We want them to speak their minds, so that we can be more effective, do our jobs more effectively. Now, I get frustrated. I know everyone gets frustrated. We all hit walls. The whole frustration crying thing seems to be a women's thing, and I don't understand why.
Well, I'll explain. I'll do my best to explain. Physiologically, tears serve a very specific chemical function. This is one of my soapboxes. I'm actually a big fan of tears. Men are socialized not to cry. And I think that's one of the cruelest things we do to men. The reason being is that what tears are essentially a chemical data dump. If I laughed so hard that I cried, and I kind of took some of those tears, and then I cried out of frustration, and I took those tears and I did a chemical analysis, those tears would contain different neurotransmitters, different brain chemicals. So all tears are not created equal. What your brain is essentially doing, I'll say I'm laughing so hard I'm crying, is my brain is essentially going, whoa, 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 whoa. There is way too much happy going on up in here. We need to dump this out. Because our brains like equilibrium. Our brains like to be cool and groovy. So it says, okay, we need to dump out some happy. So we cry it out. Or I need to dump out the frustration. So we cry it out. And also an unfortunate physical fact is that female tear ducts are smaller than male tear ducts. So our cups quite literally overflow sooner because they're smaller, which is unfortunate. But then the benefit for women is that we are socialized that we can cry. Unfortunately, there's still that negative connotation. Oh, she's weak, she's over emotional. Or if you have men who really care about you, they all run to you. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? I'm so sorry. And you're like, look, just let
We're
me go
making
have
it
my
worse,
cry.
guys.
Yeah,
We're
you
just
guys are
making
making
it
it
worse.
It's like, just let me have my cry. Well, you'll
Um,
notice girl starts to cry and her 2 or 3 best friends come over and they check in. It's
mhm.
some magical thing women know how to do because we socialize together.
This is why
Summer,
you go to the bathroom together.
yeah. Also, we talk about you guys. Sorry, we totally
Um,
talk about you.
we have a couple good comments and a question from the chat.
Oh, I'm glad you saw that.
Yeah, so Denise mentioned, some people have a difficult time saying no,
Mm-hmm.
and that she points out that turning the question on end can help. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, hey, would you like some more explanation, or would you like to chat more about any of these topics? Which we sort of place the control over that conversation in
Mm-hmm.
the student's hands, and that is learning how to ask questions in that way is really important.
One thing, I'm sorry. One thing I like to do is I'm somewhere it's a fence where I don't know. I like to say,
Mhm.
something like, do you want to know what I'm seeing? Or would you just like to keep fencing? Or I'll tack on, no is a perfectly acceptable answer
Mhm.
because it makes it very clear that I'm aware you can say no and I will respect it if you say no. I
Yep.
won't argue with you.
Another thing that helps teachers to do is, particularly if you're in a somewhat, I don't know, like many of our SCA practices are somewhat disorganized. We don't really have a set structure, and so we will jump between sparring and teaching and working on our own personal stuff and trying to bring out my A game, all in the course of like 2-3 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things that I've learned to do the hard way, because not everyone is, people who are less familiar with kind of the structure of practice or lack of structure have a hard time switching gears, is when we start to say, hey, what are we doing? Are we just fighting? Are we practicing something? Are you trying to work on a question? Like, I want the student to tell me what they want out of a match or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
engagement with me, so that I know what to bring. Because if it's, I want you to bring your A games because I want to essentially measure a measuring bout. That is you're going to get an entirely different look from me than I have a question about how, what to do when someone gains my sword, does this one thing
Mm-hmm.
that keeps stabbing me in the face. And we can try to observe our students and adjust accordingly. I'd rather ask. I'm not that
Yeah.
smart.
I get
um,
I get very different fights from Kai. If I say we're at an event and I come over and I say, this opponent kept doing this and I don't know what to do about it. Okay, well, let's do this. Or if I come over and I say, Kai, I need 5 passes. That means, okay, bring your A game. I'm going to go, go, go. Or I say, Kai, I need a warm up.
yep.
Because what he does, at least for me, is he'll match kind of where I am, and we'll slowly both ramp up as I get more settled in. If I just said, hey, Kai, give me your best, first thing in the morning, I'm going to get my ass kicked.
There's a great follow-on question from Tyler. It says, on the note, part of the issue for our group is how to keep other students from overwhelming someone, particularly when the instructor is trying to parse down criticism or advice. How do we approach the idea of limiting the flow of information? I think from the student's point of view, one of the things that I will, before I invite other people to come in and give commentary, I want to make sure my student is okay with that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the SCA is a little different from like a WMA club, because we have multiple teacher-student relationships across multiple different, across different people at different times. So there are times when when Carrie and I are in a teacher-student relationship, I'm the teacher, she's the student, we're working on something. There are times when it flips, when it's like, I don't understand this thing that you're talking about. I need you to explain it to me. And then she becomes the teacher, right? Or there are other people that I go work on stuff with. And so again, we try to deal with this by sort of setting expectations up front and really placing the student in control. And sometimes, we have some folks who have, read every manual there is to read and know everything there is to know about murdering someone with a sword, and you just have to tell them to be quiet.
Yeah. Just thinking
It-
the same thing, because we all love to share our knowledge in this sport. We all love to help.
Mhm.
And totally, it happens at our practice. Maybe it's me and Kai, and then Terry wanders over, and then Logos wanders over, and then Desco wanders over. We just need to go, guys, we got it.
Mhm.
Bug off.
Alternatively, when there is something that we're seeing that someone else knows better than we do,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I will, like as an instructor, I will try and set up a situation where they're working together. So I can say, hey, Ernesto, this is something Carrie's working on. She's been having some challenges with. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Can you help, can you help me here? Can you help me create a situation where this issue comes up so that we can see it and so that we can unpack it together? But you try to get people involved, in a controlled way. So it's like, hey, hey Dan, so it's like, if I'm working with Ernesto for something, this is what I'm asking. This is the thing that I'm asking to provide, versus, if I'm gonna, if we're gonna go work with Cyrus on something next, and to try and unpack something else because Cyrus does something, does this in a way that is really conducive to creating the learning opportunity. We'll go do that, and you try and get people involved in kind of a targeted way. But ultimately, like if you're the instructor, sometimes you just need to put your foot down and be like, guys, we're overwhelming our friend here. Let's tone it down.
Yeah, sometimes
Or
you just need to go, everybody, thank you, but we have too many cooks in the kitchen right now.
or can we hold that for next week?
Yeah. Sometimes saying, that's great information, but we're not there yet. Guys definitely said that one before.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't really have policies or ranks or jumping in. Personally, I believe that everyone has something to contribute, no matter how experienced they are or are not. And if we say, you have to have been here for a certain amount of time before you can open your mouth, that creates a very hierarchical structure that doesn't work for a lot of people, particularly people who are sort of giving, they're basically giving up their free time to get to be here. And basic customer service, if they're not happy, they won't stick around. And plus, I personally believe that if I and people that I've been working with for a long time are the only ones talking, I'm just creating more clones of myself, and that doesn't necessarily advance the art. So like PJ is much shorter than I am. She doesn't move as fast as I do. She's like a different body type. But but there are things that you do that I don't do I don't do as well, because you have to do them and I don't. Colleen is the same way. And I want to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable and empowered to say that in a way that's constructive, so that I know, like, hey, Destreza works differently when you're 5'2" and when you're 6'2". Who knew? Or, wow, the fact that a lady student has these obstacles right here in her chest that get in the way of doing certain things with your arms. This is useful information that, like, I don't think about day in and day out. And so I have to be reminded.
So I see a comment from Nicolina
Mm-hmm.
saying that the absolute worst is when a woman is crying on the field because of an abundance of an emotion, and then people are excusing her of throwing a fit, or, oh, she's not having her peer-like qualities, this is a fault. Yeah, that
And
happens.
it's not.
And it's not.
And we need to resist both the urge to tell someone to be an adult and to infantilize them. I mean,
Yeah.
both extreme responses are non-constructive.
That's why I try to educate as many people as possible about that chemical function of tears. So please, everybody, go share that information so that people know she's fine. She just needs to flush it out.
Yeah.
I have totally taken off my mask at events and walked away. And Kyle go, "Are you okay?" And I'll go, "I just need to do a data flush." And he goes, "Okay, she'll go to the bathroom, wash her face, she'll be fine." That's the response we need.
And Ernesto, your question, do we have issues switching between modes with different students? No, but mostly that's because I've been doing this for a long time. I got started doing competitive Taekwondo, and if you've ever been to a Taekwondo tournament, it's like the longer the higher belt you are, the worse it is, because all of the children go first, and it's color belts, then black belts, then the adults get to go. So you've been there since 7:30 in the morning, and now you're an adult black belt, and it's like 5 in the evening, and you're like, why am I even here? Oh crap, it's my turn. So you learn to regulate your adrenaline, and you learn the triggers that put you into different modes. So like for a long time, I had a playlist that's just got a lot of songs on it that get me in, that just kind of get my adrenaline up and get me into the headspace of, I'm just here to hit someone now, versus a conversational teaching. And I think that like talking with my student helps too. And that is a skill that really only comes with practice, and just doing it. Because like sometimes you need sometimes the first person you walk out there with wants your A game, and they want it right now because everyone is fresh and you've just warmed up. Some people want to know what it's like to try and dig deep at the end of practice when you're exhausted.
I guess for me, it's because my practice has been mainly me teaching for about the past 7 years.
Yep.
I've lost that ability to just turn on an A game, as opposed to I get there and then I can maintain it for a while. If I'm zipping back and forth, I can give somebody a good fight, but it's still not going to be that tournament level fight if I'm going back and forth in a practice.
The only way I've learned it is by fighting a lot and entering a lot, sort of entering tournaments is really good for that, because because there's a whole lot of sit around and wait. And I know you're going to get to this eventually, but like we need to be able to keep our adrenaline going to stay quote unquote warm. Like one of the worst things that happens is you cool down, and then you've been sitting for a while, and now you have to go and it's do or die, and you're like and you're creaky, and your knees hurt, and you're cold, and you're like, what am I even doing here? And so like learning to regulate that adrenaline and kind of stay in that zone is really helpful. And this is something that is very much gender based. Aggie says, with so many different styles and forms that may or may not work with individuals, it can be difficult for new students to know what they can pick and choose what works for them. This is absolutely true.
I think that actually kind of floats into the section that we have on finding people's different learning styles. So I think we can answer the question that way. And then I also see Dan and Gabriel. I don't want to lose track of your questions either, so make sure we get to those.
I think they all sort of tie into each other, right? Because it's like, how can we pick what's good? And how do you sort of recognize what works for someone? Part of it is knowing your students. But when someone is brand new, one of the things that we have tried to do was to build a curriculum that is sort of principles based, right? Fortunately, the human body can only move in so many different ways. Our joints only do a limited number of things, and so with some variation, you can create we can create a relatively consistent training approach. So like when Carrie and I teach, we teach out of a vaguely Italianate fencing, single rapier, center line dominant system. I'm going to put my sword on top of yours and stab you. If I don't have my sword on top of yours, I'm going to put it back there, or I'm going to retreat and reset. One of the reasons that we do this is it looks like fencing. Like if I think of fencing and I think of The Princess Bride or insert fantasy movie here, this kind of looks like that. People are going back and forth and they're stabbing each other. They're not running around in a circle or trying to fight from a squat. Whatever that is, it's something that's fairly generic.
And it's a good way to start nurturing that decision tree.
Mm-hmm.
I tell all of our new students, like, day one, congratulations, you have planted your decision tree. And if your decision tree is, put your sword on top of mine, stab me, or retreat, I went, congratulations, you have a decision sprout. It has 2 little leaves. Isn't it cute? Yay! And so with that curriculum, it starts building that the foundation and the center trunk of that decision tree. And then, as the person gets better, we start branching out. We're adding more branches and twigs and variations. But you have to have your basic idea to grow from. And with us, that's sword on top, stab.
The other thing that this gives us is the ability to look at is the ability to engage with the student and say, hey, how do you feel right now? Like, when we do footwork, when we teach like, this is how you lunge, all of this kind of stuff. They'll tell us like, hey, my knee is killing me. I can't do it this way. Or, I don't like something about this hurts, or something that's, I just don't understand. It doesn't work for me for whatever reason. And that's how we can then divert people into different paths. So like we have a student, we used to fence on Wednesday nights. It seems like it was a year ago now. But like we have a variety of students who want to do a variety of different things. We have some Spanish style fencers. We have some Italian style fencers. We have some German style fencers. We have longsword people. We have side sword folks. There's lots of different things. But fortunately, like I said, there's more similar than there is different. And so if we start in a way that's relatively consistent, we can teach people really a couple of things that are kind of universal, which is like, one, how to move around safely, on a floor, how to move around without blowing your knees out or rolling your ankles, and two, how to stab someone with a sword without tearing up your shoulder or your elbow. Everything else just sort of comes, and when we talk to people who are brand new, like, I've never done any martial art or combat sport before, I usually try to ask them, like, what other things have you done? Like with Carrie, with you, when we were first doing this, it was you were an equestrian.
I was a pony princess.
You grew up riding horses, and that's great, because that gave you a particular set of skills that are useful in sword fighting, which is learning how to steer with your hips and your core. Other people, they do yoga or something. It's like, all right, well, do you know how to create a warrior pose? Yeah, okay, fine. And some people, they've done nothing at all, and that's okay too, because what we start with is I try to start with like a mental model. So like, if I'm teaching someone footwork, I start, okay, well, walk backwards, we know how to walk forwards, how to walk backwards, left, know how to walk right. Here's some things that we need to be able to do this in a martial form, which is, one, we don't want to fall, right? So, so that sets a baseline of like, where's my center of mass, even if you've never thought of your center of mass. I don't want to trip over myself, which means, okay, there's certain ways we can move our feet that are conducive to not tripping over yourself. Let's work on these. And I don't want to get hurt. Well, our knees and ankles hinge in a limited range of motion. And if we try to go outside that, we get hurt. So, these are like, so here's a way that I can teach sort of a type of footwork and a type of movement that's really just kind of based on those principles, rather than, here's an advance, here's a retreat. We're going to do this because this is what I learned when I was in high school.
So then once we get beyond, hi, welcome, you're brand spanking new, here's how to move forward, back, here's how to lunge. As you get more into, we're learning more of the particulars, you're learning your disengage or your preem or whatever. The way that you explain that to get to different people depends on how they learn. I don't know if Aggie or Hillary happens to be sitting here right at this moment, but she's a teacher. So I know she can talk about identifying learning styles, but I'll do my best. So your learning style is your unique approach to learning, with influenced by your cognitive strengths and weaknesses, your personality factors, and your personal preference for learning either auditory, visual, or what they call kinesthetic or tactile learning. And these are three very broad types of learning. Spoiler alert, the best way to learn an athletic skill is to incorporate all of these. But once you identify what your preferences are, you can, adjust which is more prominent than others. So like an auditory is explain it to me. Visual is show it to me. That kinesthetic or that tactile is let me do it. I'm a very tactile. I'm tactile visual. You can explain it to me and I'll go, okay, can you show me? And then once you show me, I say, okay, let me do it. That's how I learn. Whether it's fencing or math, I'm terrible at math, but you can explain a math problem to me and it's going to do this. You show me, it'll get a little closer to my head. If I do it, maybe I'll figure this out. That's how I learn. Or if it's like, say, yeah.
Aggie makes a good point. Many people are multi-duality learners.
Yes.
I think I kind of understand what that means.
So I'm guessing that means that you do a combination of these. If you remember back to your school days, you probably remember your teacher explaining the thing, showing it, and then having you do the thing, having you do worksheets. Because you're trying to hit all of the different kinds of learning at once because you've got a class of 20, 30 kids. So once you've identified that, and it can be, what mode do you remember liking best in class? Or saying, do you want me to show you? Do you want to try it? See how that goes. So once that's identified, the next thing to tackle is your students' cognitive strengths and weaknesses. And this sounds worse than it is. Simply put, how does this person's brain best take in new learning? The research has shown that on the whole, less information at a time is better. Kai and I have found out through literally doing it, no more than 1 to 3 new things in a learning session. Anything more than that, and it's just not going to sink in. And go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, we try to limit sort of lesson time to about 10 to 30 minutes.
And then the rest of practices, go try it. Yeah, go practice. It's kind of like, here's your lesson for today, go do your homework. Some students also prefer what they call a lower rate of change, or a slower rate of learning new material. That's kind of a more conservative approach to the learning. So some people are like, let me master each skill before I take on a new one. Some people are like, let me get it well enough to then learn the next thing. Some students are like, yeah, show me everything. You kind of need to be like, okay, slow down. As we would say in the horse world, you gotta know how to walk before you can trot. But I don't necessarily have to be a master at riding a walking horse before I can learn how to trot. I can have the basic idea down, but it depends on the student. I'm looking at my notes here. So the rate at which your student is going to master these skills and feel confident in moving to the next thing is going to vary by fencer, and it's going to vary by skill. There have been skills that Kai has taught me, and in 2 practices, got it. There's been other things where it's been this one concept and it takes me months. It all just depends on how your brain works, how it interacts with this one skill. So,
and there's no schedule, right?
No, there's not.
It's not a race. So
this curriculum that Kai and I talked about, we don't have like week 1, week 2. We have lesson 1, lesson 2. However long that lesson is going to take. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. There is one teaching style that Peter Rouse mentioned that I think it's worth talking about, because it's probably one we've all encountered, which is I'm going to fight you until you get it.
I hate that style.
Um,
I see Stacy going, I call this the whack don't die method.
And some students really, really thrive in this environment. Again, this seems largely to be gendered, although not always.
Mm-hmm.
It is sort of the traditional method. Honestly, like if you're in a position where someone who sort of you have influence over as a teacher is trying to impart knowledge this way, there are times when this is useful. Like if I want to go, if I need someone to, if I need a student to go and practice against someone who is going to give them a look that they're not used to, for example, like this is a great sparring partner for them. There's a way, so I try to channel those people and let them help them find a way to contribute to the class, or to the learning process in a way that suits them and their particular personality. But sometimes you also need to want to talk to them and say, look, you're not helping the new people because they have no idea what to do, and you're not giving them an opportunity to learn.
Which is something, which is a thing we've got later on in our little lecture here.
So
as Kai said, this
steer them.
seems to be more or less gendered very broadly. I've met more men who like the whack don't die method. One of our guys at practice, Warder Quill, I love Quill, but he's like, you can just go bang, and he's like, yeah, do it again, hit me again.
And then the third time it won't work.
Yeah. Others, maybe it's 12 times and he's still like, yeah, do it again.
But eventually it will stop working.
I have so far met one woman who actually likes this style. Every other woman I have met hates it. Stacy, you're going to say something?
No. Majority of women I've come across, especially in Ethelmark, they like to do it till you get it.
Okay, so maybe it's a regional thing.
I agree with that, actually. I feel like, at least I like that method. If it goes to the point of frustration, obviously I want some sort of input.
Yeah.
However, I don't know if it's really gendered so much as to it's tiered. Because I find that at higher level of skill, they know roughly what's going on, so they could try to correct it.
That's actually a really good distinction.
I've noticed a lot of people that I have fenced and met with in the SCA, if they've been doing it a long period of time, regardless of how good they actually are, they have a tendency to favor the that method as well.
Okay, so maybe it's more focused on maybe you're newer or even newer to intermediate level fencers. Because what I've heard from a lot of the women that I've talked to, and as we've seen numerically, there's fewer women at the grant level and peer level of fencing. I've heard so many of them say, if you've done the same thing to me 12 times and I still haven't got it, what in the world makes you think I'm going to magically get it the 13th? Now, somebody like Quill, he does. Not every student likes that.
That's your job as a teacher.
Exactly.
To put it in a way that they get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly, if they wait 12 times, good. Don't let them wait 12 times.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to do it.
No, exactly. Because so two things here. One, if it's just like 12 times I'm still not getting it, I've had people say, well, then what's the point? I'll just leave, or I'll just go get a rubber band gun and shoot them, because this clearly isn't working. The thing that I try to pay attention with when it's particularly a female student is that the female brain is more prone, it's not guaranteed, but is more prone to process that as being punished for trying. So maybe like, okay, so we're gonna fight, do the thing, bang. Well, you did it wrong because I killed you. That can be processed as I tried my best and I still got punished. And I don't think I need to elaborate on how bad that is going to be for keeping this person engaged and having fun.
You tell them to go do it on somebody else.
Yeah. And given that we don't know people's life history. There are sadly more women and men, but more people than I want to think about who have been in abusive relationships and they've had that exact thing happen to them. It could be, oh, look, honey, I made you dinner. Whack, I didn't want that for dinner, or why is it cold? It's like, well, I tried to do a thing and now you've hit me. We don't know people's pasts. We don't know what they've seen, what they've been through. So especially when you don't know the person, unless they've asked for it, I try not to do that. And again, use your words. Hey, Bob the fencer, what do you want from me? Do you want my A game? Is there something you're working on? Things like that.
One of the things that I learned to do to create a better learning environment that helps people deal with stress. So Gabriel, to your point, stress, when someone's stressed out, it's a lot harder for them to learn things because their brain is not entirely engaged. And so one of the ways that I try to differentiate between the learning and the practicing and then the execution is by sort of explaining kind of what we're going to try and do. And so like with Carrie, I have the signal is I'm going to try to hit you now.
The way Kai developed our method of teaching has worked so well for me. He'll say, okay, what do you remember from last week? Here's what we're going to learn. We learn it. And this is all masks off. Because, okay, well, we're clearly not going full speed because masks are off. And then what he would say is, okay, go put your mask on. Now I'm going to try to hit you. And this did a few things. First, he said, I'm going to try. And I remember there were times I was like, oh yeah, try, you're going to hit me. And he goes, no, I'm going to try to hit you. You have learned the skill. When you execute it properly, I won't hit you. That's a nice confidence booster. He's going, no, it's not a foregone conclusion. You know what you're doing. And also saying, put your mask on. Now I'm going to try to hit you. Allows my brain to go click. Okay, now we're in contact. Like, I hate the whack, don't die method. So when we're learning, we do the thing. I don't do it correctly. Kai's sword will come and stop about here, or anywhere in my body. He doesn't actually strike me. I mean, I can see the sword. I can see I did it wrong. It's right here. He doesn't need to percussively strike me. But when he says, now I'm going to try to hit you, oh, okay.
Now I'm going to try and hit her.
Now he's going to try to hit me. So he's very clearly delineated. Because if he just suddenly mass off, bang, he gives me a whack. Oh, God, I wasn't expecting that. This is not what I signed up for. My little hamster's going to fall out of the wheel. Of course, now he just... Yeah.
Particularly if we... And this goes back to the I'm going to fight you until you get it method. If you have a student who has a history of trauma and you do that to them, they may never come back. I mean, we have students who don't have that history or knowledge, who they take a hard shot to the head unexpected, and they're like done for an hour because you just get out of the loop, right between the eyes, and
yeah,
that takes some processing.
And if you're at a point where you're not doing full speed or you have mask off and suddenly you strike your student, what you've done is breached trust.
Yep.
Because you just did something you guys didn't agree on. Of course, nowadays, Kai just says, go get your mask on, and I know, okay, mask on, we're going.
And I totally
but
get
there's
that.
still a signal.
I totally get that, and that's part of, there's a difference between what you teach your student and what you teach someone that you just met on the field. I get that, and there should be a difference because you don't know their background like that.
Yeah. If you don't, and the less well you know someone as a human being, the more important setting expectations is, especially when you're at a big event where maybe the only chance you ever get to impart any kind of information to them, because they will remember the experience, even if they don't remember necessarily the specifics.
I totally agree, and as a teacher, you should have a different set of criteria for what you teach your student and what you teach that person you just met on the field. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and Nicolina, you raised a really great point that you said this is hard, this is amazing, this is hard, I'm getting frustrated. That, like, as a teacher, that is the thing that I'm looking for. That is the thing that I'm always trying to build. I'm always trying to keep the student kind of right at the edge of their comfort zone, and I'll occasionally try to prod them out of it, but not constantly, and in a controlled way, because I want them to be like, oh, this is hard, but that's so cool.
Yeah.
Because I want them to love it the same way I do. And Aggie, you have a great point as well. Being pummeled over and over like a harp seal in rattan can be discouraging at best, even as you're starting to learn skills and grow as a fighter. This is absolutely true. And one of the things that the fencing community has tried to learn is looking at kind of what our friends who've been doing this for a couple decades longer over on the armored side doing, and trying to see trying to evaluate for ourselves what we do, what parts of that culture and that teaching culture especially we want to keep and we don't.
And that's not to say, any given part of heavy teaching culture is not bad or good. It just may not be as applicable to fencing, let's say.
And each community has its own set of goals, and we will, if there are lessons that I can learn from my friends in the arms in hard suit combat that will make me a better teacher, I will sit there and absorb that information, like a sponge. And if there are things that I'm like, nope, that's just going to make my students angry or frustrated or feel bad about the SCA or the sport, I'm going to just kind of smile and nod and say, all right, cool, thanks. And I will just not use that.
So like Kai was saying, if somebody's had a stress, is under stress or has had a stressful day, that their brain, they just don't have as much room in their brain on that day to learn a certain thing. One of the other things that I learned about in terms of learning in a sport is very broadly commitment, tolerance, and interest for what you're doing. And the thing is, these wax and wane, these come and go, given so many internal and external factors. I think, 4 years ago now, I finished graduate school. So during those 2 years of graduate school, I went to fencing every week. It was my self-care, but my learning of fencing was definitely a lot slower because I was up to here in psychology every day because I was in graduate school. So
you were trying to live on Cheez-Its.
Yeah, grad school was not kind to my waistline. I have a lot of prosperity to show now. At that time, I learned one or two things in a given lesson, or maybe it took an extra long time to learn those one or two things. Because if Kai tried to teach me 3 new things, I was already 95% brain full. There was only so much more that was coming in. Now, that's not to say that I was any less committed to fencing or any less interested. I just had a lot of other shit in my head at the time. Once grad school was over, suddenly my learning went whoosh, and it took a leap forward because I was suddenly not, eyes deep in, attachment theory or whatever.
It's the same thing. Like if you ever tried to do something when you're sick or you're not feeling well, you don't have the resources to devote, you're just not going to perform as well. Like I was at a tournament a couple years ago where I was recovering from bronchitis and it was just terrible. And someone eventually came up to my husband and was like, "Is Jim okay? I keep hitting him." And he's like, "No, he can't really breathe." Oh, okay. And another friend of ours he's an excellent fencer, goes, "Yeah, are you?" He's like, "You're sick, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you can tell?" I was like, "Well, you're fighting like you, just slowly." I'm like, "Yeah, that pretty much is how I feel. I feel like I'm trying to fence in water."
The same fencer that went, "Oh man, I thought I was doing really good today."
When you're stressed out, it's not all that different. Like you may be physically, you may quote unquote feel fine, but your body has been operating at a higher level, even if you don't realize it, right? When we're stressed out, our respiration goes up, our brains hyper focus on things, because what we're doing is we're looking for danger. And when we're looking for danger, we're not worried about learning new things as much unless it's directly relevant to that danger. And so we just learn more slowly. And, you know, that's one of the ways that, you know, hey, what do you want today is really helpful. That simple question, because that encourages the student to say, hey, you know, hey, I've had a really stressful day. Let's just play, or let's just kind of do this one thing that I kind of want to work on, and that's all I want to do today, and that's totally fine.
There have been times I've come to practice and just said, you know what, I've had a bad day, I'm really stressed, I just want to feel good about myself.
We're going to the bar after practice, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it is the responsibility of the teacher to help the students identify on any given day what their level is of that motivation or that frustration tolerance or their investment that day, and then respect and work within those parameters. And it doesn't have to be something like grad school. Maybe your student's going through a divorce. Divorces, even amicable divorces, are stressful. So maybe it's like, you know what? I just want to have fun today, or let's just learn one thing. Let's take it slow. That's fine. And if it's a year of that, it's fine. We are on no timetable here. We are not trying to get scores for the Olympics. Meet your student wherever they're at and respect that.
Yeah, pretty much. Nicolina says, I was once told that it signals, that we covered the, this is hard but cool. And yeah, Aggie, that's very true. In some cases, you may have to teach the student how to do that. And as instructors, the more we practice these skills ourselves, the more we can, the more effectively we can empower our students to communicate this to us in ways that make sense for them.
I've definitely tried to power through when either my brain is full or I'm frustrated because I'm like, you know, I'm fierce. I can work through this. Grr. And Kai can see I'm frustrated or can see that I'm getting worse and worse. And he'll go, let's take a break.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and it's okay. Be like, hey, why don't we take a break? And then, you know, again, check in with your student. Like, hey, what's not working here?
Yeah.
You know, like if one of the things that creating a starting from a baseline of trust and comfort gives you is the ability to be more direct with your students because they trust you and they know that you're not belittling them or you know, criticizing them to promote, to inflate yourself. You're genuinely concerned. And so when I can say like, hey, when we're working on something that's just clearly not working, you're just like, it's just not working. I feel more comfortable saying, hey, what's going on? Like, ordinarily this is something that you would get, or like, it looks like you're not getting this. What's not working for you? Help me understand. And sometimes the answer is just, I can't deal with this right now. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
that
sometimes
is totally
I'm
fine.
like, it's just not working today. I just don't have it. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. It's just not working.
And so
one,
that can be a signal.
That's also, wow, yeah, she's frustrated, especially when I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it can be a signal to maybe bring in someone else who might have a different perspective, or maybe a signal to stop. And someone mentioned this before. Oh yeah, Nicola mentioned this before. Sometimes writing things down is great. I love writing things down because if nothing else, it gives you a save state to say like, I can't brain anymore. I can't learn anymore. I'm gonna mark down where we're at, and we're gonna come back to this next week.
I love my fencing journal for two reasons. One, it reminds me what I learned last week, because whenever I go to practice, I'm coming off of a full day of therapy. I've maybe seen 8 people.
I have outsourced so much of my brain to this thing. Yeah.
So I can go, oh yeah, that's what I learned last week. And the other thing I put in my fencing journal is anytime things go well. If I had a particularly good practice, or I'm like, hey, I knifed Logos in the face, woo, or had a good event, I never write down the bad. Because when I'm having a bad day, I can go back through my journal and either go, oh wow, hey, look at that thing I struggled with 4 months ago. I get it now. Or see all of those times I did well and go, well, if I did well back then, logically, I can do well again. I must not suck that bad. So that's what I love about my fencing journal, is remembering what I've learned and encouragement. And it's also nice to go, my brain is full, I need to go write this down, so that I can go sit down and save my files. And sometimes Kai will say, if I'm like, I just don't know why this isn't working, Kai will say, okay, well, let's go get some water, write down in your journal, and then we'll talk about it. And we kind of workshop and go, okay, let's see if we can't break this down and identify what's not going right. Because sometimes I don't know. And I need to walk through it and go, oh, this is the bit that's not making sense.
Yep. Nicolina also mentions, and this is part of that creating an environment of comfort. You should let your students see when you have an off day. Everyone, everyone. So one of our the people who shows up regularly says, sometimes, it's like a windshield. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. Sometimes I'm having a bug day, and that's totally fine. Letting people see that doesn't take away from your reputation as a teacher. What it does is it reestablishes it kind of reestablishes your humanity to your students. And as a guy, I was not taught, I was not taught as a child to show vulnerability, and as an adult, learning to do so the hard way, I believe, has made me a better communicator with people who are trusting me to teach them something that is physically difficult and potentially dangerous. So like being willing to say, like, yep, no, you completely ate my lunch today, and that was awesome. And get because here's the shitty day that I've had, and I'm just not here. That's cool. I'm not perfect. None of us are, and reminding our students of that actually helps. I find helps strengthen the relationship, because it's like, oh, he could have stayed home, or he could have just kind of done whatever, but he put his helmet on and came out and tried to did the best he could, and that's also something of value. A bunch of us here in the middle within the SC in the Middle Kingdom have this hashtag called like Team Do It Anyway, which is I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to run. I don't want to get on the elliptical. I don't want to do squat, whatever it is. But I know that it's good, and I know that it's going to benefit me, and so I'm going to do it anyway. And when we share those experiences with each other, we remind each other that we are human, and that we are fallible, and that what we recognize as quote unquote mastery or excellence is a process.
I try to be very open with people that I meet at events, and be like, oh yeah, I have totally stuck off to the bathroom and cried. I totally get anxious. I totally get really nervous. All my teammates know this. But I'll be like, oh yeah, before melee, I feel like I'm gonna puke every time. True story. And they're like, really? Why? I don't know. I just do. Or before a tournament, Kai will always tell me, Gwen, get up, walk around, because otherwise I will be in my camp chair with my head in my hands like this, going, I think I'm gonna puke. I don't know what it is about competition. I did this when I rode horses. Just for whatever reason, I get very anxious. And sometimes people look at me and go, no way, you seem so calm. And I'm like, no, I'm panicking on the inside. But it shows that, I'm human. I've got my foibles, and it's okay. You don't become a bronze ring and instantly become this paragon of fencing awesomeness, or I don't know.
Tyler has a question. He says, when you say you never write down the bad, do you mean general mentality that day, or is it like specific things? When I note things from practice, I exclusively note things I need improvement on, which is not necessarily bad, but a function of goals.
Yeah. So like I may write down like what I'm learning, but if I just had a crap day, I'm not going to write down I had a crap day, or I'm still not getting this right. So, I mean, if it works for you to write down, I didn't execute this thing well today, go for it. For me, that just makes me feel bad. I don't need to be reminded, oh yeah, this thing that I should totally know by now, I just sucked at. I don't need to read that. That's just me. Or I don't need to write down, today was a very rough day. I struggled with a client. I actually hate journaling, I hate writing down my thoughts because to me it makes them permanent. And for me, I'm not going to write down my thoughts unless they're bad thoughts. But if I write down the bad thoughts, they're permanent thoughts. So that doesn't work for me. But my fencing journal works very well because it's a record of what I'm learning and it's a record of positives. So that's just what works for me.
And what we try to do is we try to frame the learning process itself as a positive. It's like, it's not, okay, this clearly is, it's less, this isn't working, we'll try it again next week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more like, all right, well, here, trying to get to this outcome. Here's how far along in this process we've come. Let's write that down so we don't forget it. But we also know where to pick up again the next time. Mm-hmm. So that there is a record, and so that we don't necessarily we know sort of where to pick up again. You had a really good point about motivation, Carrie, that you just mentioned in around like, hey, you need to get up and walk around, right? As an instructor, and this is something I think that comes in sort of in competition modes. When we're at a tournament and you're trying to keep your people motivated. One of the things that I try to do is, I call it staying warm. I think it's a little more than that. It's staying engaged and staying happy and not getting up in your own head. Mm-hmm. If I know that Carrie's tournament is starting, it's starting in half an hour, I'm going to ask her like, hey, have you had lunch yet? No? Okay, well, maybe you should have that for now. Right? Or when's the last time you fought? Okay, go. I'll point at pick someone. Go fight go fight Nicolo because he's really good and he tends to push you in a certain. He tends to push you and kind of get you in that zone. And by doing that, they stop people from getting up in their own. You stop your student from getting up in their own head, like really trying to think about everyone that they're going to fight and work on it and figure out the perfect strategy for each opponent. Because at that point, they're not trusting their sword, they're not trusting their skill, not trusting their practice. It's like cramming for a test. When it's the night before, when it's like midnight the night before, you're done learning. Nothing you read is going to sink in. Just kind of roll with it and do the best you can, and that's going to be fine. One of the other ways that I try to motivate people, and this is something that I learned from Carrie and PJ, is while we always want to win, we are also not necessarily. I also want to remind people that you're not just competing against everyone else. You're competing against yourself. And so, at the beginning of the day, I try to ask my students, "Hey, let's set a victory condition for the day." And so, like when PJ was just starting out, like it was no one wants to one-shot me today. And even if she lost every single fight, as long as no one just went, go whack, you're dead. Success. And then the next time, maybe a couple months later, it's like, so hey, what's your victory condition? Well, I don't want to get one-shotted, and I want to kill, and I want to, and I want to come away with a win. Again, you may go, someone may go 1 in 20, but they've met their goal, and the more you progress and the more regularly you can achieve sort of the previous goal, that helps you learn, that every student learn, and maybe now I can kind of think of another one. So they're finding ways to stretch themselves and to grow as practitioners. That's not necessarily just measured against did you get a W or not, which is great and important. But
redefining those victory conditions turned my events around. Because before I was going in and I was saying to myself, okay, I want to get as far as I can in the tournament. Problem is, unless I won the tournament, it was never going to be far enough. However many wins I got, it was going to be one too short. And also the problem with that is aiming to win the tournament gives you really shit odds. I mean, I realized
if there's 20 people, you have at best a 5% chance.
If it was me and 9 copies of myself in like a 10-woman tournament, this copy of me still only has a 10% chance of winning that tournament. Those are really shitty odds. And when it's
so good, like the floor could be crap that day. You could be hungry. You could suddenly have to pee.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. And so like measuring yourself, you do want to try to every so often go out, get out of your comfort zone. Like the last one, the last big tournament we went to was Festival of Maidens, and I said, Carrie, I would like you to try to get out of your pool.
What you told me.
And you did.
Well, that's what happened. What he had said to me was, try not to lose to anybody who's not at least a bronze ring. Well, my first fight in my pool was to somebody who wasn't a bronze ring, and I lost. Mm-hmm. But somehow, I was like, well, shit. Oh, well. Somehow, I still managed to then make it out of my pool for like only the second time.
You're a really good fighter.
Yeah. The person that I lost to won the up-and-comers tourney. So they were no slouch, which made me feel a little better. But something about that redefining those victory conditions really works for me. And so granted, that time I got to laugh and go to Kai and go, well, I didn't meet my victory condition, but I still made it out of my pool.
And it's like, sweet.
Sweet. And sometimes my victory condition is, you know what? I'm going to properly execute this thing I'm learning 7 times. And if I do that, it's a good day.
Yeah, and these are all techniques to help people maintain that level of motivation, because winning competition relies on a lot of factors that are outside of your control. And this, it's important. It's important to learn. It's important to be able to adjust to and deal with. But in terms of staying motivated and continuing to enjoy the sport, in my experience, knowing that you did your best, and knowing that you did the things you set out to achieve that are specific and measurable, attainable, like that's a win. And you can say, like, you can come away from that day saying, I didn't win a prize, but I came in with setting these challenges for myself, and I made them. And that is, and I feel great. And yeah, I didn't win the tournament or whatever it was, but I can, I now know that I can do this, and I'll come back next time and I'll try to push myself a little harder. And the wins will, like the W's will come with motivation. But if you just focus on, if you just kind of take this Cobra Kai sort of approach to it, you will lose motivation, and then they will just stop fighting.
Yeah. And it's a kind of positive feedback. And who doesn't like positive feedback? I think we all do. And even as a teacher, there's a big difference between saying, try it again, or you did it wrong, or no, do this. I don't think, at least I'm not always as conscientious as I should be, and I need to think about that phrasing. Instead of, no, that still wasn't right, as opposed to, okay, you were close. Or, okay, make this small adjustment. Kai, maybe you can give some insight into how you phrase your feedback positively without lying. Because sometimes I just have a shit day. But I've never heard you go, yeah, today you were just shit. I at least would be like, oh, gee, thanks. I really needed that. But you've never lied.
Usually it's because I phrase in questions. I ask a lot of questions. I went to law school. Every class was taught Socratically. So like they just threw questions at us and expected us to answer them. But one of the things that teaching through inquiry does is it makes the student think. So like if something's not working, like, okay, I want you to gain my blade, respond when I disengage, respond instead, whatever we're practicing. And it's not working. And so like it's clear that it's not working. It's clear that someone's not doing it right. So I don't have to, like, saying it accomplishes nothing. So instead, what I'm going to ask is like, hey, it looks like you're not, it looks like something's not quite working for you. Where you like, where are you hanging up?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not making this about their performance. I'm making this about trying to make this about their learning process, so we can identify what the obstacle is and figure out how to either get around it, power through it, divert to something else, or just, hey, we're just not going to do this we're just not going to do this thing. Like, if I have a student that, that has a chronic knee injury and just will never be able to lunge properly, going through lunging drills isn't, no matter how correct they are, it's never going to be helpful to them. We're just going to find an alternative.
And one thing that Kai will do on a day where, say, we're learning 2 or 3 things. And it's okay, let's say, okay, we've got it, we have it at slow, and now we've put masks on, and we're getting faster, we're going more 100%, and it's falling apart for me. He'll say, okay, slow it down. Or he'll go, okay, he doesn't say this in this many words, but he'll communicate, okay, you know what, we're just going to forget step 3. Let's just go back to step 2. Because sometimes, usually these lessons go step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, forget step 3 for now. Let's go back to step 2. We'll get that firmly.
And that's something, that's achievement that you're like, oh, okay, I've successfully done a thing. And now I know that it's not that I failed to execute on whatever it is we're doing. It's just, I haven't quite put all the pieces together yet. And that's a very different message to take home.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So even on days, even at practices where I'm like, I'm just a big ball of suck today, I can walk away. I always walk away still feeling like, yeah, I'm still okay. And that's mostly through Kai, who will remind me, okay, look, you can't suck. You don't actually suck that hard. Today's just a bad day. And sometimes he goes, today's just a bad day. And that's, again, when he'll say, I'm just having a bad day today. And it's like, whoa, even Master Kai has bad days? It reminds me, it's okay if you have a bad day. Kai has them. And Kai, in my eyes, Kai is amazing. So if he has bad days, that can't be that horrible of a thing.
Everyone has them. And just, that's okay. Being, this just goes back to, being human.
Yeah. Like, I guess kind of one thing that Kai will do is he'll kind of remind me of my own abilities. Again, I don't know if this is a gendered thing or not, but it seems like on the whole, women tend to doubt, are more prone to doubt their abilities. And then, like, some males are more prone to exaggerate their accomplishments or their capabilities. So whichever way your student is, that's something for a teacher to modulate. It may be like, okay, hold your horses, sit down, honey. You're good, but you're not God's gift to fencing.
Alternatively, sometimes people just need to hear, you know this. You're better than this. And that can do a lot. Like a lot of times we are our own worst critics. I know many people who are artists of some kind, and like they will produce something like, that is so cool, it's amazing, and like, yeah, well, here's all the things up. Like, I didn't know any of that, and even though you pointed out, I still can't tell. It's still amazing to me. Like, athletes are the same way.
Athletes put a lot of trust in their coach or in their teacher. At least with the research I've done, female athletes in particular put a lot of faith in their coach or in their teacher, and need to believe that teacher will nurture and guide them as much as simply just teaching them. The gymnastics coach that Jim talked about at the beginning clearly knew how to teach gymnastics, but her gymnastics students came to her and said, okay, look, we don't trust you. And so that was clearly a big factor, that they were all willing to go to her and say, okay, look, yeah, you know how to teach, but we don't trust you.
Yeah, and creating trust helps with something that Nicolo just mentioned, which is, hey, he said, sometimes an idea that I use when students are stuck on a complex action is that we stop to work on the component parts, is to use the analogy of the basic actions as words and the complex actions as poetry, so that we occasionally need to learn the words so that in the future they will string together and we can create a poem.
I like that.
That's a really good one. I use Legos a lot. I use Legos as my analogy, right? Like, hey, you know, right now we're going to build a really cool, you know, we're going to build the Saturn V, but right now let's just actually get the base, you know, get the base together so that the thing doesn't fall over.
English background. I don't do the physical stuff as well.
Yay, English majors!
Mm-hmm. No, but like it's absolutely true, and doing that and is a way to create a comfortable learning environment. And it's a way to remind people that everything is a process. You know, there isn't actually an end state of like perfect mastery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think like, and it's just it really is just some pretty basic stuff around creating an environment where you're not tearing someone down. You know, you can critique without criticizing.
You could set up for success.
Yeah, you set someone up for success without you know, sugarcoating. You provide critique and commentary without being mean and nasty.
And this actually brings up something that Kai does really well that I'm trying to learn, is kind of how you set that student up for success in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a hard skill to learn, and it's trying to fight just above your student's level, so that the fights are tough enough that the student has to work for their victories, but that the victories are still obtainable. Now, the bit that I'm still learning, and I forget it sometimes, is this doesn't mean fight worse. As Kai says, with, say, that brand new student, like, don't do something that nobody would actually do in a fight, because then you're just you're basically programming your student to expect something that's never going to happen. But you can fight bigger. So you can make a bigger disengage, or maybe wait a tempo before lunging, because this allows your student to develop their eye for what they're seeing. And I remember times where Kai would say, okay, here's our parameters, and he'd wait that tempo. Then he'd stab me, and I go, oh, okay. Or then my eye got faster and faster. I'd get to that moment where my brain would be going, is he gonna, yeah, he stabbed me. Then that got to, he's gonna, yeah, he stabbed me. Which then got to, no, you don't get to stab me. Yay.
Yep.
So
no,
it's
this
fighting bigger, not fighting worse. Go ahead, Kai.
And going back to a comment someone else had about like the guy who just wants to beat people into skill. This is actually what you just described is a really good way to kind of channel that impulse and help them become a better partner. Because one of the things that having an organized curriculum does is it helps us measure sort of what a student knows, and so that when I turn them loose with the rest of with you know, to spar, I prefer to have people sparring on day one. All they know is how to. All they know is how to advance. How to move on the floor, how to parry, and how to stab someone. That's it. That's all they know. But they can still spar, because the message that we give to the other students is, this is their first day. Don't do anything. You know, like fight to that level. This is what I would like you to do. Yeah, I'm totally tying tying your feet together and tying a hand behind your back, but they're brand new, and that's fine.
Yeah.
For the person that just wants to beat people into getting better, you can tell them, hey, try to narrow the scope of the scope of the things that you're going to throw at them, and also like make your actions a little bigger, make them a little easier to see.
Yeah.
You know, we when we're new at something, we require more information to make a decision, and our decisions, and we tend to choose from many more options, because we have all of the stuff in front of us. We don't have the experience to know like what works and what doesn't. So by helping more experienced students learn to be a better sparring partner, and to fight in a way that encourages encourages the less experienced student to see what you're trying to show them, and execute on the correct response in a more or less non-cooperative fashion. That isn't just, I'm going to try and murder you with the sword and you try to stay alive now. That helps, that creates better muscle memory, because and it helps build that over a shorter period of time. Because if I start fighting, we use speed 0 through 10. Speed of 0 is we're all laying down and having a picnic. 10 is it's a zombie apocalypse and we're literally trying to fight for our lives. We can kind of I can calibrate to say, all right, hey, I want you to fight this person at like a 4, for whatever definition that is. And the way to do that is not to fight poorly. I want you to fight well. I want you to use proper techniques, but to fight in a way that makes it easier for them to perceive and react to. So like instead of disengage being this, it might be this, right?
One thing we try to do is limit the techniques and maneuvers that you use to the things that this student has seen before.
Yes, absolutely.
So like if they have never seen, I don't know, going into first, and then you do that bang, they have never seen this before. They have no idea what just happened. So throwing something new into the mix just to see how the students respond, that's for a more advanced student. And it's probably
someone
good.
Who has all the Legos.
Yeah, somebody who has all the Legos. And you can just go, okay, you have all the Legos, build me a truck. But if they don't have all the Legos to build the truck, what you're doing is, again, you're breaking that trust. And you're kind of going, ha, 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 look how good a fencer I am. I can still beat you. And the student's going like, yeah, I know. That's why you're the teacher. No kidding. And sometimes the lizard brain triggers and you throw something out, acknowledge it.
And then you own that. You're like,
yeah,
it happens. I'm like, hold on, stop. That was my bad. My bad. Sorry, I should have done that. Let's back that up and try that again.
Yeah. I try to do this at events when I'm like, when I'm asked, hey, what do you want from me? And they're like, oh, well, I'm working on this thing, or I just kind of want to have some fun. I go, okay. And I might say, what are you working on? And I kind of try to gauge. I'm not always good at it, but I try to gauge, okay, what maybe this person knows. Or if I throw a shot and I see that moment where they're going, did somebody get the license plate on that truck? I'll ask. I'll go, I'm sorry, have you maybe never seen that before? And if they say, yeah, I have no idea what that just was, okay, do you want me to show you or just not do that again? And we'll find out. Because it depends on what I want out of this fight. It depends on what they want out of this fight. I don't want to be the person that everybody goes, wow, Gwen just kicks people's ass just to prove she can. I don't want to be that jerk. Even if it's a brand new fencer and all I'm doing is parry, lunge, I get to work on my parries and my lunges. I get to work on my footwork. I lose nothing by fighting anybody of any level, because there's always something I can work on, even if I'm in the teacher position, which I personally think is great.
We've got about 10 minutes left, and I know we haven't quite gotten entirely through material, but there are a number of questions coming up. I was wondering if you're willing to just sort of take them for the next 10 minutes. Okay, great. Maybe I'll start with Dustin. You said you were a little late. You're asking about video. Using video can be great. We don't use it as much as we could. Although we do have some people who show up regularly who do use like Coach's Eye and things like that. I personally like video, even though I don't use it as often. I don't know. Does anyone else have a really good a good experience of like how they use video in their practice to kind of show people sort of what kind of outcome we're trying to get to?
I haven't used it, but I once was down at a practice down NCR where the Drakes were training with Ray and Kelly, and their old practices was they would always have a section where they'd film everybody, and
Mhm.
afterwards go over to somebody's house, and everybody would analyze all of the video. So both to see what they were doing and to have everybody else to train your own eye to see what others are seeing.
Yeah.
We
That's
actually
it.
videotape every practice.
Yeah, I think it's culturally our group just doesn't do it, but yeah, it is really it is very useful, particularly where you don't have like as wide a range of skill levels. You know, I've encountered a number like some HEMA clubs that are fairly small, just starting out, where everyone's kind of learning as we all go, and that's awesome. And you know, having video there is super helpful because everyone is kind of moving. You know, we're all sort of moving together. Video is also really helpful when I think when you're trying to prepare for something. Like if we're gearing up for, you know, tournaments or things like that, and someone, you know, wants to like really get into the minute details of it. Yeah, video is super helpful for that. Roland was saying he uses video to show the disconnect between what he thought something should look like before and what it looks like after, you know, after some more practice. So that's really pretty good. Any other questions for Carrie or anyone else, or other things that you'd like to build on, since, you know, it's been a great discussion so far. I've got one. Yeah, I've got one for you, Carrie. One of them, I think one of them is how to get students, you know, how to get a student sort of into that zone. You know, we're sort of getting out of practice now, but we're sort of getting more into coaching. One thing I've noticed is that, for example, it takes you a lot longer to get into your zone the day of a tournament than it takes me.
I think there's two factors to that. I think there's always experience, always counts for something. The other thing that I think it also comes down to our adrenaline curve. You know, when your adrenaline's up, you're focused. You're.
We just lost you. We lost your audio. Can you hear me now?
Hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Okay.
You spike.
Okay. So the thing with, and I actually found this out from Duchess Elena, very interesting that the male and female adrenaline curves are quite different. On the whole, in general, the men will go from 0 spike to the top of their adrenaline and then drop back down to 0 in about 10 to 15 minutes. So that's why I can see a lot of my male teammates, they go out, they do a few passes, boom, 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 and then they go out and they fight. Women, on the other hand, our adrenaline curve tends to climb for about 10, 15 minutes and then stay there for another 20 before coming back down. So if anybody's ever witnessed an argument in a male-female relationship, you may notice they split away in anger. 15 minutes later, he comes back. He's fine. He's chill. He's over it. And she's looking at him like, why aren't you still angry? This is important. And he's looking at her like, why are you still angry? Because his adrenaline has come down. Hers is still here. Don't have time to go into the evolutionary theory as to why that is. But what that means for me is that I have a much slower climb. And so Kai and I are trying to shorten this down. But it can take me 15 to 30 minutes of slowly ramping up. So whereas maybe Quill, he can go jump right into the ring and be at his A game level, do a few passes and go into the tournament. My first fights of any given day are nowhere near as good as my fights 15 minutes later, because I have to do this climb with my adrenaline curve. So if I'm at a tournament, go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, and so that tournament, this is now we're sort of stepping in and taking the role of coaching. We need to using this kind of information can really help plan out the schedule that you're going to try and put your team through or your students through. If I know that if I know that women tend to amp up slower, but stay there longer. I know that I know some things. I need to know one. I need to start getting them warmed up sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be like, all right, tournament's gonna start in 5 minutes. Let's do 2 passes and send you off. I did that to Colleen in the last big tournament we went to, and it was a complete failure, and I feel really bad about that. It was like
You know better.
We didn't have time.
Okay, fair.
And that also means that like during the course of the day, as things are going on, you want to check in with your students to say like how they're doing. Women, Colleen, a number of our female students need more maintenance fights to just keep to kind of keep at that level, because once they're cold, once you cool down again, if it takes you another 20 minutes to ramp back up, the tournament's halfway done.
Yeah. So for me, I have to do my maintenance fights maybe every 5 minutes.
Yeah, you go out and fight a few fights, just to stay warm. And you want
Stacy has some insight on how to spike up adrenaline faster. So Stacy, I would love to hear this.
I am all ears.
Well, you get. I hate to be like. I know we're focusing on people's feelings and their individuality, and I get that. And not everybody is going to be the same. Master Quinn used to do something to me before a tournament that used to spike my adrenaline like that, and he used to just like punch me in the leg really hard. And
I can see where that would do it. Yeah,
it's just that instant shock. It the way our brain works, we're everywhere. It not only helps for the adrenaline rush, but it just takes that focus and just bam, there it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know that's not for everybody, but
yeah, I can see where some people would hate that, but I can also see where that would work really well.
I get that, but that's part of the
know your student.
Yeah, that's know your student.
And we tend to get into a fight or flight. If you put us in fight, we're going to get there faster. So the confidence level that you need to send your student into a tournament with has to be way up.
Yep.
You can do this. You got this. Get in your fight mode, because your fight mode's going to get there quicker, adrenaline wise, and it's going to get you more focused, quicker, faster, and longer.
That's great. Thank you.
That's a great thing, and that is a thing that is an ability that comes from knowing and trusting, having a knowing your student and trusting your
years of experience. It doesn't happen overnight. Trust me.
Like if I did that to someone, if I did that to Carrie or even to Roland, like who I also work with fairly regularly, just out of nowhere, A, they'd probably punch me back, and B, it would come I don't think it would be that useful, because they'd be like,
we do get a lot of funny looks. We used to. We don't really do it that much.
I'd probably be like,
excuse me,
what was that for?
But I know, it's something that we had done for years.
Yeah.
So I knew what it was. I knew it wasn't.
Oh yeah. You had that agreement. You knew what it was. You knew what it meant.
I don't know if it was
trust.
necessarily agreement when we started. But
okay.
it became that way.
It seemed to work, so we just kept going.
Like, would it be as effective if your teacher just went up to some rando and said, "Hey, go over to that girl and hit her in the leg"?
Yeah, because
like
anger.
Excuse me.
Anger will get our adrenaline out.
Yeah, and that is something you can do when you trust each other.
Right. But if you're not really familiar with the female and you want to get that adrenaline, get her in that fight mode. Get her. It's that flight or fight.
Yeah.
And that might be a conversation to have with her. What will get you into the fight mode as opposed to the flight mode?
Sometimes
because that's a very different kind of adrenaline.
Sometimes they're not always going to know.
Yeah.
It's something
to learn.
Right. And it's something you as a teacher too have to kind of figure out what, they got kids, they got things going on. Like it's just whatever you can have them focus on. It doesn't have to necessarily be anything physical either.
Yeah.
I know a number of people who use music. So we're at 8:00.
We are.
Carrie, would you like the last word?
Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming. Everybody with your questions and your insights. This is all wonderful. Kai, I believe you posted our lecture notes somewhere.
Yes, they're in the chat, kind of towards the top before we started just talking. And
yes,
yes,
the recording will be posted.
it'll go into YouTube.
Yeah, Evrum's going to put it on YouTube. It'll take a few days. If here, let me put down my email address in the chat. So if anybody has further questions or whatever, if you have any reason to want to reach out, that's how you can do so. I hope everybody got a little something out of this. Again, thank you so much for joining.
Guys, do you mind if I recommend 2 books?
Not at all.
When I was trying to figure out what I was doing wrong teaching wise, or just to approach it from a different perspective. There's a book out there called Mindsets by Carol Dweck. It actually helped me a ton. There is a small section about coaching and how to change one person. I'll always fail and do this, and try to meet failure in a positive way. It's not necessarily failure, but progression is what it is, and how to approach that with your students. The second one is Fear's the Mind Killer.
I do.
I've heard a lot about that one recently.
It's very good. It's about creating a very safe and comfortable training culture.
Yes.
And goes into that as well.
Awesome.
I've read one, and the Carol Dweck one is actually on audiobook. It's a long one, so buckle in for that one. It's actually easier on audio.
Okay. And everybody have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, wash your hands.